I want to welcome you to Be the Church weekend. It is our tradition, our custom here at Generations Christian Church that we take a couple of Sundays throughout the year to really just create some margin in our lives. I know today as we're all going to view this message, I've got some opportunities where I'm going to be meeting some new people and I'm going to be being the church in my context. So I hope that you kind of absorb this, that you share this with some friends, that you maybe watch this during halftime of the game that you're going to be at today or the game you're watching. And you have an opportunity with this extra margin, and all of us here who we meet together weekly to celebrate Jesus resurrected from the grave, our hope, and we want to connect people to them. But this is our time to be the church. This message, I think it's a very important message for all of us just to get into. This is a message for you as we dive into 2023. It's always great, clean slate, brand new year. This is a specific message for the season, the time that we find ourselves in, and probably useful in a lot of people's lives that you know. And we've been in a series, we're going into a series, this kind of bridges the gap as this one standalone time message as you launch into 2023. We're going to be doing a series starting next week on Joshua, this prolific spy, statesman, leader, warrior, all of these things that he was in a season of Israel's history that's going to be exciting. But today, I want to point you to a moment in time. And you probably know some fragments and some pieces of this story, but it helps you as you launch into your 2023. I want to take you to this character of Moses. He's such an identifiable character for all of us because he's called to something that he doesn't want to do. Maybe that's you. He feels like he doesn't have the skill set to do it. Maybe you identify with that. He's at a point in his life where he's not looking for something, but context and situations arise where he's pulled into a larger narrative, a larger story, something bigger than himself. And some of us want that. Some of us would rather not have that and watch that on Netflix, right? You know, we really want to live boring, comfortable lives and watch excitement because excitement is scary. Excitement costs. Excitement and adventure, you don't sleep in your comfortable bed and just have a routine of a day. And we love a piece of it, but we really strive for ordinary, mundane. Well, Moses gets pulled into this and he's got the reaction that so many of us would have, like, I don't want this. And you probably know some pieces, maybe you're conjuring up pictures right now in your mind of Charlton Heston playing Moses, and he stands in front of Pharaoh and he says, "Let my people go." Maybe in the back of your mind you can hear, Louis Armstrong singing that popular refrain and that voice of his that just kind of has that low rumble authority. Let my people go. And that's the moment that we picture, but honestly, that's not what actually happens. I mean, technically, if you think about what's going on, Moses comes to ask the largest superpower in the world at that time to take their greatest asset, free labor force. This is a people that's known for, to this day. You travel to Egypt and you see great works of, architecture, great works, modern marvels still to this day, the pyramids. And this is a group of people that are known for building massive projects. And you're going to come and say, here's what I want from you. I want your free labor force. Historians look somewhere around 1 million to 2 million people in number at that time. And what it is what I would challenge you to consider as you launch into 2023. And we all know the eye roll that happens with, it's a new year, what's your resolution? What are you going to say that you're going to do? I would ask you to make a ridiculous request. Make a ridiculous request. I want to read for you the request that happens from Exodus chapter 5. Moses makes a ridiculous request. God created the world with just words. And James tells us, the brother of Jesus, that we're caught. We lay traps for ourselves. The King James says we're snared You know, like you get something in a snare, maybe like trap a small animal and catch it in a snare. We're snared by the words of our mouths. And so we can set bad traps, or sometimes I want to set a trap that I want to get caught in. You know, I'll speak words to fulfill a prophecy of something I want to be caught in. I want my mouth to constantly set good traps. Well, listen to what's evoked. Words are evoking this ridiculous request in Exodus 5:1. Here's what Moses does. Afterward, Moses and Aaron went and they said to Pharaoh, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." See, Moses comes and originally, he doesn't ask with a lot of authority. If you didn't hear the message from December 18th, as we were just a few weeks ago coming into the Christmas season, there's a small section of the message that we talked about on that week where we were actually pretty close to this text. And we looked at how God comes and systematically, he demolishes, like God tears down. And really the essence when Paul says that our faith should demolish every argument set up against it, God does this for the first time in his relationship with the philosophy of the world. He comes and he looks at the gods of Egypt, and all of the plagues, every one of the plagues, it's a demolishing, it's a tearing down of one of the precepts or gods, ancient gods of Egypt, where Egypt sits enthroned on top of all of the civilization they've created and all of the popular think of Egypt as a culture. God comes and tears that down. And what happens here is Moses comes and his authority grows between every single plague that happens. And that "let my people go," the authority of that grows with each plague as God tears down an argument. In the season that you are about to embark on, we will all come into 2023, and some people will declare definitively, "I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to get freedom in this area. I'm going to do this thing." And what we see here for centuries, since it happened immediately thereafter, God's people, those who believe in God, would come and they would use the narrative of the Exodus, coming out of Egypt, as a narrative for our own lives, that we would come from a place of slavery to a new promised land, a new version of you, a new thing. And as you're embarking upon a new year and you're saying, "I'm going to do this," this is kind of the narrative that carries you through there. And what is in the narrative is this idea of making a ridiculous request. When Jesus first says, "Lazarus, come out of that grave," I picture the twitching, right? I picture the beginnings of an awakening and your words of the ridiculous request that you will make. "I want this to happen. I want this to happen." It is a trap that you're setting for yourself. It is a possibility that goes from no one knowing to you knowing, to you saying, and there's power in the words. We know from the book of Psalms that God uses his fingers to create the world, but it was mostly his words that he spoke, and made in his likeness, your words have power. Make a ridiculous request. But here's what happens with Moses. He does not exactly obey God. God says to him in chapter 3 what to do exactly, and in chapter 5, we just read it, Moses says, can all the Israelites just go out into the wilderness and we just want to have a feast? That's all we want. We just want a vacation. We want a holiday. We want a temporary freedom, a temporary easement. Just give us a feast. Well, back up to the encounter that God has with Moses in the instructions in Exodus chapter 3 and listen to what God says exactly. God says, "Go, I'm sending you. Go to Pharaoh and bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." Chapter 3, verse 10. This is before Moses says, "Can we just have a temporary festival?" But Moses said to God, verse 11, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? We immediately see this hesitancy. And maybe you're walking in the 2023 and you're hesitant around a spouse or children or people at the office or just the judgment. You're already pre-negotiating your failure. And everyone's like, what's yours? What's yours? And it's tongue-in-cheek in our culture. The pervasiveness of our culture of you can't change is deafening. And it's not what God calls you to. It's not what God called Moses to. And we see Moses go to Pharaoh and say, can we have a piece of freedom? And some of us say, I want to lose a few pounds, or I might want to grow my business, or I want to work on this thing. And even in the way that we pronounce our ridiculous request, there's already a seed of defeatism in it, to where we've given ourselves an out. And what we need to declare total freedom. God commands Moses to go before Pharaoh and declare total freedom. It's ridiculous that we would even say it. You put words to it and it starts to take life and shape and form, and it starts to, through your words, create hope and potentiality, possibility. But if there's any bit of doubt that's in there, God did not originate that when he calls you to freedom. What's maybe key to all of your history with definitive statements, you've probably got a history with saying, I'm going to stop this, I'm going to start that, I'm going to win this, I'm going to change this. You've got this history in your life of declaration. That's not new to you. What also isn't new to you would be absoluteness, where you've heard a motivational speaker say, you've got to believe it, you've got to know it in your knower, you've got to be more resolute, and you've done these things, but what has happened is ultimately failure in an area. See, there's a piece of all of this that might be lost in your understanding of the text. See, God says in verse 12 of Exodus 3, God said, I'm going to be with you, to Moses, and this will be a sign to you that it is I who has sent you. Because you're going to go to people, you're going to go to your life, you're going to go to your reality in 2023 and say, I want this to change. Maybe you've had no intentions of doing that because you like how things are. And I'm saying, no, truly analyze it. You're going to go, and God says, here's a sign that I'm going to be with you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, or when you come to, with your words, with your ridiculous request, with your total freedom declaration, you've come out of Egypt and you've started the book, you've started the stuff, you're getting going, and you're ready to be more determined than ever. God says this, when you've come out of Egypt, I will worship you they will worship with God on this mountain. See, God's calling you to a mountaintop experience. And here's what's key in all of it. God delivers you from something to something. Whatever it is you want to do. If you're not addicted to something and trying to break through it, you just want a better life. There's some life that you have, and there's a new something you're going to. God has that already put together for you. He's already got a tapestry of intent mapped out. It could be the best possible version from that. And it's caught up in the English understanding and the actual Hebrew meaning that's in the text. See, in the English, it sounds like I'm getting out of jail. This old narrative of you've got to leave your Egypt. And we all understand, I'm coming out of Egypt. I'm coming to the promised land. But what's misunderstood in the text is what God was actually saying was, it's not come out, but it's ascending. God technically told Moses to go to Pharaoh and say this, you are going to send my people to their destiny. He comes to the thing that has you bound up, and he says, send my people where they're destined to go. Do not let them go. Send them going to a destiny. God has picked a new version of what he wants you to land into. Exodus 3:10, when you hear it again, If you were to brush back away the famous lines of Moses, "Let my people go," and hear the original words of God, he says, "Go now. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring the Israelites out of Egypt." There is a sending. Many of us do not have the victory and a new clean slate, a new moment, because we have a predetermined sending that we want, and we don't receive what God is sending us to. See, when God sends Israel to the promised land, he sends them to all Gentiles to be a light to the world. Here's how you know that you are on the right path with a new year and a new slate. It's when there's an embodiment of your freedom from that which you want freedom from. And the new thing that you're moving to has this woven kind of thread through it of Jesus being the light of the world, hope for other people, and the new thing that you are going to. When that is a part of you saying, this year will be different, then God is in it. God wants to be in the new thing that you're going to. And it's really a part of this narrative. Still today, Jesus comes out of Egypt, physically and literally, to be a light to the world. He calls Israel out of Egypt to be the tribe of people that Jesus would come from, to be a hope and a light of the world. And nothing will change. If you are going to have change in your life, if you're going to realize freedom, it's going to be a freedom to something that ultimately is about Jesus being a light to other people. You want power to prevail this year? Make the new thing that Jesus has called you to, the extra margin in your life. Some way let the Spirit of God wrap into your new promised land hope for other people to know that Jesus is real. When you do that, you're praying in the will of the Father. You're living in the will of the Father. So make a ridiculous request. Just pray this week. What can that request be? Make a ridiculous request to God. And then wrap up in that like declarative, like total freedom. You're not looking for temporary holiday. You want forever in your life for this to be the reality. And then make the something that he is calling you out of into the something new. Make it all about the proclamation of Jesus, because you need go power. You need stay power. You need willpower. That will be found only in it's about Jesus. If you wrap that into this, here's what you're going to have. An incredible, incredible year. I really hope that this week you kind of walk in that and let the Spirit of God say, here's how Jesus can be a part of this new thing. There's nothing that you can come up with that's like, that would be better, that Jesus can't say, I could be the king of that. Ask him, how can you be the king? How can Jesus have a main part of this new thing I'm being called to, or this thing I just want that would be good for everyone around me? He so desperately wants to do that. And then, dear friends, and come and join us as we look at Joshua and how God forms this new nation. There's so many things that you're going to be blessed about. I cannot wait to experience that with you next week. May God lead you in your ridiculous request this week. This is your time for something new.